Now that I'm back home, really for my own purposes, I wanted to do an analysis of the data of the very long trip because I've never made an EV road trip of that length to the Grand Canyon and back. I mean, that's pretty significant. And so I was reviewing the data, decided to throw it into a slide deck and make a quick presentation, share it with everyone in case any other EV nerds might be out there in YouTube land. I suspect there are one or two. This is the trip map, and we started in Brevard, North Carolina at a Airbnb. We went through western North Carolina into Mount Eagle, Tennessee, and then hopping on 40 and basically staying on it all the way until the Grand Canyon. Spending the nights in Memphis, Tennessee, Amarillo, Texas, Winslow, Arizona, and the Grand Canyon National Park at the Bright Angel Lodge. Totally 2,000 miles in this direction. On the way back, we took actually a different route. In New Mexico, my wife wanted to see Santa Fe, and it really is a beautiful city. If anyone has not been to Santa Fe, take an opportunity. It's just really well-kept city, very clean, historical architecture, plenty of places to eat, sightsee, and drop $10,000 if you want to buy some art. Yeah, I was just looking. Also, we stopped at Roswell, New Mexico, ended up there on New Year's Day. We didn't see anything of extraterrestrial origin, at least alive, a lot of pictures of them, so we know they're there somewhere. We just didn't see any walking around the streets. And then came back. So the trip back was longer. Instead of 2,000 miles, I'd probably say 2,500, so a total of 4,500 miles in total. Also, on the way back, we were able to take a southerly route home through Atlanta. So we went down this way and then up into Charlotte because our starting point was not Charlotte, it was Brevard, North Carolina. But our return trip allowed us to take the southern route and basically have no difference in time. Actually, is a faster route because of the 40 being cut. We were on interstate the whole way, so that was definitely better for us. And stayed in Little Rock on the way home. Over here, we stayed in Santa Fe. Found a Tesla supercharger that caused us a bit of an issue in Mississippi, and also a new Pilot Flying J under construction in Mississippi, and then cruised. And if you want to check all the PlugShare stops, I checked into and put pictures, so those are all available if anyone's interested. Okay, so the numbers crunched. I felt the elevation change was of most significance, and it turns out to be. When we went up 2,300 feet, we dropped below 2 miles per kilowatt hour. We were also going very fast. In the western United States, the speed limit is typically 75 miles an hour, allowing you to travel up around 80. And no reason to go slow. We had multiple charging stations. In fact, on the way back, we skipped the Chickasaw, Oklahoma station. We didn't need to charge there. We went Roland, Oklahoma City, Sayre, and Sayre, Oklahoma City, Roland, and was able to make it just fine, and stopped in, as I mentioned, Little Rock with level 2 charging at an Embassy Suite, so we didn't need the Conway, Arkansas, and then went to West Memphis. Should be noted in the video, I found derating of 60 kilowatts at the West Memphis, Arkansas after a bad storm evening. On the way back, it was fine. It was charging over 150 kilowatts, so that was some kind of temporary phantom issue, or it was quickly corrected. The West Memphis, Arkansas station is apparently operating just fine, so that is good news. And didn't go to Jackson or Mount Eagle on the way back, but let's go over these numbers. This 3.0 mile per kilowatt hour is very unusual for the Lyric, and I should note that I was watching Eric at the News Coolum YouTube channel's Days of Bolt Miss videos, and I had no idea the Bolt had such good efficiency. It routinely gets over 3 miles per kilowatt hour. In fact, it normally averages about 3.5 miles per kilowatt hour, sometimes even higher. That is just amazing efficiency that car has. Hopefully, when they reinvent the Bolt, they won't take away the efficiency, because that is just absolutely fantastic efficiency. We don't see anything like that in the Lyric, and maybe because the battery pack is so large, it adds a lot of weight, and it's also a pretty big car, so its drag coefficient is pretty high as well. Regardless of rolling resistant numbers, we got 3, but we were coming out of the mountains and traveling slower because these were very windy mountain roads that we were going through. So we were not going 75 miles an hour at all. We were going, 30, 20 miles an hour in certain locations. Sometimes we were getting up speed of 55, 60 miles an hour, but nothing like what we saw later. So I think the decrease in elevation and also the decrease in speed allowed us to make this 3.0 mile. And we didn't have to struggle to get it. It's not like we were hypermiling. We didn't hypermile anywhere in here except for coming into Roland from Conway. I kind of pushed it, and you see there was an increase of efficiency here. The reason being is because there was heavy traffic, and that decreased our speed. And also I was purposefully drafting behind semi-trailers. And I wanted to get there, and I got there with 8% instead of what was projected to be a 0% state of charge arrival state of charge. So that was a deliberate hypermile attempt. Not really hypermile, but just focused on efficiency. And it was noticeable. So you are able to do that if you need to in certain circumstances. And what I find, decreased speed, as Tom Malogny says on the State of Charge YouTube channel, and also drafting behind semi-trailers. They sometimes get perturbed that you're sitting on their bumper, but most of the time they don't. And if you can find a good cluster of tractor trailers, that actually works pretty well as also. So overall, the efficiency, I would say right around 2.4 miles per kilowatt hour or something like that. I suppose I should have averaged this, but going up in elevation and on the way back, it was very similar in reverse where we were getting higher. We'd never got up to the 3.0 the entire trip back, but we did see increased efficiency coming out of Arizona into New Mexico. Actually, Albuquerque is in a bit of a weird spot. And then when you leave Albuquerque, you actually go up a pretty good mountain before you come back down and level out. There's a bit of the Rocky Mountain spine that cuts into Albuquerque that you have to cross over. Now let's get into charging curves. I want to put this all into one slide and discuss them individually. And as you can see, this little dip right here is very characteristic of General Motors Ultium cars. I call it the GM scallop because it kind of looks like a scallop dip. Instead of trending down evenly as it should, like what this curve does, there's a bit of a scallop. And all I could assume is there's some kind of thermal derating that the car does as a result of preservation or something. But you can see it's not in every charging curve. So it's not a very predictable, reliable. You never really know what you're going to get. Once it dips, you go into about 60 kilowatts, and then it comes back up again. So, and it should be noted that in, where is it? West Memphis, we start at 60 and it's even. So it could be argued, well, your car was derating, but I don't think that was it. There was no irregularity in the charging curve, and it didn't, when you get these dips, it normally starts high and then it comes down and it dips, but that didn't happen there. There was definitely something wrong with the station at that time. It had since been corrected. But let's go over these. So in Mont Eagle, where we were coming out of the mountains with a nice warm battery, we spiked up to 180 and then we mellowed out around 100 until towards the end it dropped back off. In Jackson, Tennessee, we had the scallop dip. Total of 48 minutes in order to get 87 kilowatt hours. It should be noted that the Lyric has a very large battery, so one way or another is going to take time to fill up. In my opinion, what matters is the C rating. And if you can do 100 kilowatts in 1 hour with the Lyric, basically it's a 1C. And 2C is a good number. 2C is basically, in the Lyric, it would be 50 kilowatts in 15 minutes would be 2C, or 100 kilowatts in 30 minutes. Now, we never really reached that, but let's go ahead and see where we got close. Here is a 37 minutes, and we got 63, so that's not 2C. Here we got 87 in 48 minutes, so this is more of a 1C charging curve. And West Memphis was the worst with 32 in 40 minutes. So that is like a, what would that be? That would be almost a 0.5C. Conway, Arkansas was a slower charger, so that's really not relevant. But we did stop there and got a few extra kilowatt hours in order to get us into Roland. Roland, we got 76 in 40 minutes, right around 1C. And Here in 22 minutes, we got 45, which is pretty close to 2C, but that's not 2C. So 2C would be like exceptional. And I think the Lyric could do 2C if they work out the charging curve and get these GM scallops out of the mix. I think at some point I would be able to get a 2C. The best one of the entire trip was this 60 minutes, 100 kilowatt hours in Amarillo, which is 1C. Now, because I was going to 98%, it was much lower here. But if you looked at the video, I was tracking right around 1.5C, 1.75C during the initial phase because I was way up here and it was holding it. And there was no dip. There was no GM scallop. It was a really good charging curve. And I just pushed it to 98% because I needed the extra juice in order to get where I was going that day. But this was a really good charging curve. If we could have everyone look like this, there really wouldn't be a problem. But, you know, as you can see on either side, we've got scallops. And you can see the scallop doesn't happen at the same time in every charge. And it doesn't always happen either. Here in Bellemont, it actually was a little bit slower charger. I'm not sure if it was derated or what. But this station was outputting basically about 50% of what it should have. We were happy to take it, though. It wasn't derated all the way down to 60 like West Memphis was, but it seemed to be a little bit slower than it should have been. It was a cold morning, however. The car had some interstate travel. I didn't do a precondition before I got there, but still. 52 minutes, 66 kilowatt hours dispense. That's not great. Really, over here in Amarillo was the monster charge with 98.42 kilowatt hours dispensed in 1 hour. So that's the summary of the data dump for the long trip. Anyone who has a GM Ultium car, I would imagine you would be able to expect something similar. I understand 150 is the tap out for the Blazer and Equinox. The Silverado and Hummer and GMC Sierra actually can pull all the power available. Those are able to do 800 volts with split between two levels of the pack. So that's a little bit different. But anyone with a sedan or SUV from GM with the Ultium tech could probably expect something similar to this. And the truth is, I didn't really mind. There was a couple of ones that were kind of lingering, like West Memphis. I wanted to get on the road quicker. I was expecting only to spend 20 minutes there, and I spent 40 minutes. But really, this wasn't that big of a deal. Each one of the times, although it sounds like it's a rough go spending an hour at each charging stop, it actually is not that big of a deal in my personal opinion. There's a travel center. You go to the restroom, browse social media, clean up the car a little bit, and then you've got another 20 minutes to kill in one way or the other. And it's basically what it turns out to, and it's not that big of a deal. We didn't have any problem getting to and from the Grand Canyon, traveling 4,500 miles in a little bit over a week in an EV, so that is really saying something. Anyway, thanks for watching.